What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. So, the Lions coaching team has finally been announced. There was a couple of decisions whether some coaches would get in, some would miss out, some people declining. There was a whole bunch of shenanigans going on, but it's finally been confirmed. So what I thought I'd do is I'd run through very quickly all the different coaches, just in case some people don't know about them, go through some of their qualifications, what they mean to the team, and then finally my final thoughts on the actual selection themselves, what I think will happen with the team based on the coaches that they've got and whether or not the coaches are actually a good pick. So let's start off with the head coach, which of course will be Warren Gatland, and you can't ask for a lot more in a head coach. He was the head coach in 2013 and 2017 and has now of course been announced in 2021. He was the assistant coach in 2009 as well. So in terms of experience with the Lions team, guiding a team, going to a different sort of hemisphere to do a tour, he's very experienced at it. He knows what's needed from the team, and he played of course very well with the Wales team from 2007 through to 2019, was the head coach there, did very well with the Wales team. Of course there's Six Nations wins in there, there's Grand Slam wins in there, there's semi-finals with the Wales team, and they're in the World Cup. So across the board he has a lot of experience in coaching those teams, and not just that, he even went on before the Wales team. Of course he was involved in coaching in Ireland, he's also coached a Barbarians team, and of course more recently was involved with the Chiefs. If you haven't watched the Super Rugby Aotearoa, they didn't do very good. We won't get into that, but in terms of overall coaching experience, he is one of the most experienced coaches probably in world rugby. Of course from New Zealand himself, knows an awful lot about Southern Hemisphere rugby, although a lot of people will of course think of him as an honorary Welshman with that all the good work he did with the Wales team. He was absolutely superb. So that's the head coach, Warren Gatland. Standing alongside of him was a bit of a peculiar choice to some people. Some people were quite surprised by this. Gregor Townsend comes in as the attack coach, and I don't think this is a terrible move. He is currently, of course, the head coach for Scotland, and we got to see how well Scotland did in the most previous Six Nations. He's previously played for the Lions himself as an actual player, so, you know, he's got experience on the field, going on these tours, knows the impact on the players themselves, so there's a nice little level of experience he can bring to the team there. Of course, they had a great Six Nations this year, managing to get wins over England. That was their sort of record-breaking win over England after so long not beating them in Twickenham. They beat France in that final game, an absolute clincher of a win, and of course got the win against Italy, which most people expect them to do, but a win is a win. And they only lost by 1 point to the Six Nation winners in Wales, even when they had a red card in that game. And overall, Scotland have had a very good Six Nations. We've got to see the impact of the new attacking strategy they brought to the Six Nations. It really barreled over England. I think bringing him in as an attack coach isn't a bad move, in all honesty. I think he'll work out very, very well. So Gregor Townsend is going to take over as the attack coach for this Lions tour. If you mentioned attack, of course, we've got to mention defence, and that's where Steve Tandy is going to come in. So a lot of people might not know massively about Steve Tandy. He's currently the Scotland defensive coach, and we've definitely seen a step up in the Scottish defence this year, managing to concede a lot less points than we're used to them seeing in the Six Nations. They've definitely been playing an awful lot better. He's had an awful lot of coaching experience. He was involved with the Ospreys team from 2012 through to 2018. I am an Ospreys fan myself, so I've got to see when Ospreys can play at their best, how well they can work, especially in defensive regions. They can get away. Maybe in the earlier years of that 2012 area with not conceding too many points, they had a bit of a gap. Probably around the sort of 2014 to 2016 mark, where Ospreys really sort of fell off the pitch a little bit and are beginning to come back into it more. Hopefully that's not because Steve Tandy left, but of course that means he has great links with Gatland. So in terms of a cohesion in a management team, it is very good to have players that you know you're going to work well with the personnel involved. So of course, playing the 6 years with the Ospreys, you're going to have a good mix with Gatland having to bring them in for the Wales team, signing off Ospreys player to go play for Wales. The only downside to having Steve Tandy in, of course, will be no Lions experience himself, which is both a negative and a positive. Everyone has to begin somewhere. Everyone at one point has no Lions experience. But the positive element to it coming in is that they can bring a totally different dimension to the team. Going to a Southern Hemisphere tour where they will of course be analysing, watching videos, looking at how coaches used to use their teams. Going in with no experience in a Lions team, they can really struggle to gauge what they're going to bring in terms of defensive element. So it's a negative but also a positive, so I think it worked out quite well for them. Moving on to the kicking coach, Neil Jenkins is going to take over kicking duty. You can't ask for much better in terms of kicking. Realistically, he was the Lions assistant coach in 2009, 2013 and 2017. He worked alongside Gatland for over 11 years, so we know the impact he can have. Again, obviously Gatland has wanted to keep a bit of a cohesive management team. People he's known and worked with before means you don't have to spend a lot of time getting used to other people's strategies. You know how to work with each other. You can focus on the team, get the players you want, get them in order you want. Of course, another Wales coach coming in here, so they're going quite heavily for the Wales coaches alongside of a Wales Six Nations win. It could see an awful lot of Wales players coming in. Him, with Neil Jenkins himself, scoring over 1,000 points during his Wales career. You know, it's nothing to be shy about. That's a great, fantastic final score to have. You know, he's worked alongside so many great Wales fly halves over the years. I don't know if it's far enough back. Probably will include Steve Jones there. I'm not super old to remember some of the ages, but you know, going through people like James Hook, Anscombe, Dan Bigger, you know, there's some big names in there, all of which are big kicking threats. So kicking coach Neil Jenkins, absolutely superb to have in the team for me there. And finally, to finish off, the forwards coach, another Welshman, Robin McBrie, will be taken over as the forwards coach, and I think this is a very, very good move. He is the current Leinster forwards coach, and we know how well Leinster are doing currently. I think as a forwards coach, you can't ask for too much better. I think as well, if you're bringing in some of the Irish players coming over from Leinster in that forward pack, as I'm sure we're all assuming there'll be, probably a Tyg Furlong, probably a Tyg Byrne, maybe a James Ryan, maybe an Ian Henderson. People coming into that team, you want people that they've worked with before, especially coming from Leinster players. I think it'll be very useful for them. Also, having 4 appearances as a Lions player himself, I think it'll be very useful to have. You know, the player to coach knowledge can be super useful in just knowing how players are coping with the teams, coping with the matches, coping with the games as they're going on. It's a super useful element to have to a team. He's also been involved in the Wales team between 2006 and 2019, so of course, yet again, the close bond with Gatland. So I think the real main key to this team in terms of coaching has been that Gatland has wanted to surround himself with familiarity. Get people in that he knows he can work with well. They understand how he wants to build a team. He can use his coaches to the best of advantage. You don't have to spend a lot of time mixing up and trying new things. He knows what he wants to do. The set way is the Gatland way, as we've all seen previously. So I think it's probably a good move, surrounding yourself with a solid team you can work with and allow yourself to go in to this tour. So just to finish off, let's talk about some final thoughts on this as a final coaching team. I think across the board, they've got an awful lot of experience and sort of interpersonal knowledge of each other. I think it'll work very well. The weak link, you can maybe argue, could be Steve Pandy in there. There were some other arguable people up for contention of who could get in there. Andy Farrell was mentioned at one point, and I don't think that would have been a bad call. Maybe a real bolstering to the Ireland team trying to get into this. And to be honest, I think there's an awful lot of Ireland players that could actually make this Lions team this year. And I think maybe losing your Ireland head coach that could have made this Lions team, I think might be a bit of a loss to Ireland specifically, rather than maybe the Lions team. But I think the Lions team across the board, you've got a solid kicking coach, solid defensive coach, solid attacking coach, solid forwards coach. I think it works well. I'm really looking forward to see what Gregor Townsend will add to the attacking, knowing how many different players you can have in the player pool. I think there'll be a lot of options going there. I did read earlier on today that there was 56 players have been picked so far. They've got to whittle that down to, I think it's 36 or 38. I can't remember what their final number they're wanting to whittle it down to is. But what is going to be the impact here on these specific coaches being picked over other coaches? For me, the team that could find themselves missing out an awful lot here could be the Ireland team. I think there's a couple of Ireland players that could have the ability to get into this team. They have the quality and the skill, but whether they'll actually make it into the team could have depended on having someone pushing their name in those sort of meetings. People jumping to mind, people like Ian Henderson or Keith Earls, that I think have the quality to get into the team. But if someone's not pushing for them to make that team, you can see them being overtaken by the likes of Zammit or Watson on that right wing. In terms of the lock department, Alan Jones, James Ryan, might be missing out there. Itoje could be pushed forward a little bit more. With Gregor Townsend in there, will they be looking for maybe Johnny Gray, who's been playing very well, or Scott Cummings? The Scotland element to that, you could see an awful lot more Scotland players coming into this team based on the players coming through. You've got a Scotland defence coach and a Scotland head coach involved in this team selection now, so you could see a lot more Scotland players than a lot of people might be expecting. could give the open door potentially to some players that might not have made it previously. You could be seeing picks maybe like Chris Harris could be making his way in, maybe Hugh Jones in terms of centres. Maybe you'll see players miss out like Ringrose, who performed well but began to fizzle out towards that Six Nations ending. Maybe they'll look for other players. Chris Harris was certainly impressive in the France game, so there could be some big mix-up. I'm really looking forward to the team. I am going to be doing a video soon based on this sort of coaching team that's come out, my prediction for who I think will make this Lions team. I was going to do one before the coaching staff was announced, but different coaching staff. I know there's not meant to be any politics in rugby, but there definitely is. We all know there is. So the team's going to mix up a lot. So I was waiting for this coaching staff to come in so I could pick my team. So that's going to be a video coming on. So if that's something you want to see, make sure you leave this video a like and make sure you subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with when that video comes up. And what do you guys think about this coaching staff? Is it going to work well? Is this a Lions winning coaching staff? Make sure you drop it down in the comments. Your thoughts, is there anything could have been picked better? It's certainly an interesting talking point to come across. I'm looking forward to reading your comments down below. I hope you've all enjoyed this video today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye bye.